How much of assistance are you giving manufacturers? Because I'm very interested in that because they are, meant to actually lead the pack in terms of the transformation that we're talking about. How much of assistance are they getting from you, from the government, to accelerate the development that we're talking about?
When you speak, the good news about this government administration is that we have worked very closely with the private sector. There's nothing I have done as minister responsible for industry, investment, trade, and SME development that has not entailed extensive consultation with the private sector. So we have worked together side by side. And in fact, when you talk about the Industrial Revolution Plan, you'll see, I'm sure you're aware that Mr. President set up the Presidential Advisory Council to advise him on the industrialization implementation of NIRP, which is co-chaired by Aliko Dangote. That we have all the private sector people there. So we engage with them regularly to understand the issues. And when we speak to them, when we started, their first comment was, it needs to be very clear. The role of government and the role of private sector has to be very clear. We have made that clear today. We are saying government has no business doing business. Government has business to create enabling environment for the private sector. So we have done that. They have told us we want clear policies. We have come up with sectorial policies to address their needs. They have talked to us about policy consistency. All the policies we've come up with, we're taking them to National Assembly so that they can be legislated, to be supported by law. They have told us we need some incentive in terms of gas to make it easier for our production. For example, the cotton, textile, and garment people. So each sector has their own different issues. They need access to gas. And we have given them gas at the price we're giving to someone generating power, for example. We've given them support. If you look at recently, the president converted the loan to the cotton textile loan to BOI to equity. As a result of that, BOI has been able to make funds available to put people in the CTG sector at 4% interest rate over a long period of time. So we're addressing the needs of each of the sectors. With sugar, it's a different thing. With auto, it's a different thing. With cement, and they are part of the implementation team. And of course, you have tax incentives in many areas. So you have to make sure that you get the balance right. The balance, you have to get the balance right. You have to make it easier to manufacture those products in the country and make it more difficult to import them.
Now, let's take a step back. One step back. Let's look at what's been going on in some of this, in relation to some of the policies that the administration has actually instituted. Well, in 2010, like you said, the federal government introduced a 100 billion cotton, textile, and garment revival fund. There was also the 70 billion textile fund. A lot of funds have been released to not just the textile industry, to other industries. But what results have they yielded? And what has happened to these funds? Okay. Were there any track of how they were expended? We want to know.
We have tried to intervene in many of these areas in terms of providing affordable finance. That's one of the problems and under the NRP that we have to address. So the first thing government has done, for the first time, we have done a comprehensive study, analysis, and result to come up with the entire value chain and look at the sources of capital for the real sector of the economy. Look at it creatively. How can we leverage the pension funds? How can we encourage private equity and venture capital funds in the country? And that study work has just been completed. Now it's been put, there's a task force now that's supposed to work up an implementation plan. Just to let you know that at the higher level, we're dealing with that. Your question, though, is about these funds and accountability. I don't know about the 70 billion textile fund, but I know about the 100 billion textile fund. And what we have done, that fund, for example, we got UNIDO to assess the impact of that fund about a year or two ago. Independent party. They assessed it and came and said, yes, about 40 or 50% of that money has gone out already. It has saved, I think, about 4,000 or 5,000 jobs already, or created 4,000 or 5,000 jobs, for example. For example, the leader there, UNTL, today employs about 3,500 people. 1,000 people in Kaduna, 2,500 in Ikorodu, for example. It has saved jobs and has created many jobs. And we must continue and come up with a comprehensive policy to support that industry, which is why we launched a new policy for that sector last week. So the good news also in connection with that, so we monitor that and look at the impact on the economy itself. The good news is that part of the recommendation was also to convert the loan, because it was a loan to BOI, into equity, to make it easier for BOI to restructure the loans to that sector, give them longer term and lower interest rate. We have done that. We have reduced interest rate from maybe about 6% to 4% now. And of course, we have extended the term of the loans made available to them because of the challenges they have in the sector. So we have done that. With each of those funds, of course, you have a new 220 billion fund by the CBN for the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Again, it's not just the fund. There are conditions to access the fund. You're aware also that Mr. President set up the MSME Council. Part of the job of the SME Council is to help facilitate the use of that fund and also the monitoring. So SMIDA, for example, has been assigned the role to make sure that they monitor the use of that fund and make a report to the MSME Council regularly on that. So for every fund, we have put in procedures in place to make sure that they actually achieve the intended goals, and we have a way of measuring the success and also making changes if we have to make those changes going forward.
Okay, now let's look at the issue of our economy in terms of the fact that foreign investors can now acquire more of our assets, because according to the report from the WSJ Frontier Market thing, because of the devaluation of our Naira, it's cheaper for them to acquire. Is that a threat in any way? Because we may have to record an influx of foreigners into the economy more than we used to.
It's a very, very good, valid point, but it's not a problem for now. But it's something to watch. That was raised yesterday also when I met with some people. It's not a major concern. There's a lot for everybody to do. As I always say, you need both working together. Some have the capital and they have the technical know-how. We have the local knowledge, we have the raw materials, we have the market. So it's a lot easier to partner. No, I don't say no foreign investor will come here. Serious foreign investor will come here without understanding and partnering properly with a local investor also. But I think the whole idea is not just to encourage them, it's to encourage them also after a few years and make sure that most of them list their stocks also in the capital markets.
We've not had that.
We have not, but
especially in one sector, the telecom sector. There's been a call, to list some of these foreign companies in Nigeria.
Yes.
And even some of the local operators as well, but that has not taken place. The sentiment has been they have to list willingly and not by any form of compulsion. But what kind of assurance are you giving us right now that if these foreign investors come and they make all the money in the country, will they list?
You are absolutely right. This is we have encouraged them to list as opposed to making it mandatory for them to list. But there are many ways you can get this done. There are tax incentives you can make to make it easier for them to list. You can make some sectorial things mandatory. These are all the areas we are looking at. But the goal is very clear, that we want more of them participating in the capital markets. That's clear. How you intervene to get it done is what we're addressing now. And our approach initially was to encourage them as opposed to making it mandatory. But there are other ways we can get it done, which we're exploring as we speak.
Okay, I'd like you to hold the thought for a minute. The Honourable Minister for Trade and Investments, Mr. Olusegun Wanganga, as we've been talking about the economy, the developmental plans of the government, the results that have been achieved, and what else can be done to improve the living standards of Nigerians and the businesses in the economy. We'll go on a break now. I'll be right back.